Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Brentwood Baptist Leadership Podcast. I'm Bill Ferrell, and this month we're focusing on leadership. And today we're talking about building a culture of feedback. Because healthy teams don't just grow through annual reviews, they grow through constant, consistent conversations, honest feedback, and ongoing development. It's all part of helping churches build healthier teams as we head toward the Elevate Church Conference in September on the 21st and 22nd. Today I'm joined by Brandon Hayes, campus and teaching pastor at the church at Harpeth Heights, and we're going to talk about what it looks like to create a culture where feedback is normal, helpful, and growth-oriented. So let's jump in. Brandon, welcome to the Leadership Podcast.
Yeah, man. Excited.
Yeah, fantastic to have you today. We're talking about feedback, and let's start off with this question. When people hear the word feedback, they usually think of maybe performance reviews or hard conversations, criticism. Why do you think feedback has become something that leaders avoid instead of embracing?
Yeah, a great question, man. I think part of it is we are so used to thinking of critical feedback. Right. So
Right.
We forget that it's both. It's feedback it's giving an encouraging word. Like, man, I love what you did there. While also it is pointing out the things that we can grow in. I think maybe sometimes they've had a bad experience. Right. So personally, like if you had a leader who only showed up to give you negative feedback, it's like, man, it's hard to not get nervous about feedback. And I think one of the things that comes to mind is I think particularly in church settings, we have this. In some of the churches I've served in, we can have this stereotypical idea of like, well, feedback, that's just something businesses do, or like we're not trusting the Lord if we do feedback. And it's like, well, hey, like this is just part of healthy growth, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not un-Christian to have those difficult conversations.
Yeah. I remember when I was at my previous church, we would often say that when we had an event, say we were doing Vacation Bible School or we did a Christmas event, whatever, we would say that event was never truly done until we got together and gave feedback on how it actually went.
That's good, yeah.
You know, which is a little easier when you're talking about an event because you're not calling out individuals.
Totally, yeah.
But what happens when we only talk about growth or feedback? We only give it once or twice a year.
Yeah, no. One, you don't grow, right?
Okay, yeah. It stifles growth. You're saying,
yeah, not just like, I don't mean the church, but as people, right? Like, if it's kind of like it comes to like if I only eat healthy twice a year, I'm not gonna be healthy, right? It's like we have to have a steady diet of feedback, and then I think also it does, going back to that first question, I think feedback feels more epic and terrifying if it's only twice a year, right? Because it is just like, all right, it's been 6 months, here we go. And so I think it adds to that nervousness that we experience.
I mean, obviously, you know this because at Brentwood, we want feedback to be more than an annual event, right?
That's right.
We want it to be done regularly. But what's the difference between a culture of feedback and more of a formal review process?
Yeah. A culture of feedback, I think it's regular, right? It's kind of, we've already been talking about this theme of just like it's regular. I think part of the culture of feedback is it's immediate, which, man, I'll be honest, that's so hard for me to do. I'm still growing in that area of like when you see it saying something, you know, if it feels like I don't want to be mean or whatever, but I think it is. It's that like creating that culture is this immediate like, oh, that was awesome, or hey, let's talk offline for a second. I think there's a growth edge there, you know? And then I think it's also a culture of feedback. It is, it's relational. So I think if your feedback is restricted to just a mid-year and an annual, it is going to feel like corporate and like very business-like versus, hey man, we have an ongoing relationship where we're just helping each other grow.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think you're getting at something here about feedback, and it's this element of trust that kind of goes into it, right? When you're giving it, when you're receiving it, you know, how do you go about building trust to be able to give, let's call it critical feedback? I mean, everyone loves positive feedback.
Yeah.
Let's face a little bit on the critical. How do you build the trust factor up front, and why is that important?
For sure. He's passed away now. There was a leader at my wife's company named Rick Beatonbow, and he always said, know them, grow them. Just simple phrase, know them, grow them. And I think when people know that you do know them, you do care about them because you're walking alongside them, it almost gives you like relational capital for those conversations. And I think that comes through I believe we're doing another podcast on one-on-ones in this leadership series.
Yeah.
But I think that comes to one-on-ones, regular one-on-ones. We are not only talking business and goals, but you're getting to know their story.
Yeah.
And as you do that, I think it gives permission, it builds that trust that you can say, hey, Bill, man, I love you, dude. I want to share some feedback with you. I think there's, if you know that your leader cares about you, or if the person you're leading knows that you care about them, man, like it opens up the door for that.
Yeah. What if you have a new staff member, you don't know them very well, but you need to give them some critical feedback? How are you going to start that conversation?
Sure. Great question. Yeah. I'm just going to avoid it. I'm kidding.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
Excellent.
Yeah. I think, I've used this before, even sometimes with not just a new staff member, but with somebody that's been on the team for a while, is to say something. Let's as a hypothetical, let's say you're new on our staff, which is funny because you're one of my leaders. let's say you were new on my staff, and you did a teacher training or something.
Okay.
I might and I had some feedback that like wasn't just like a personal preference. Like, man, there was something he really needed to go to. Like maybe let's say you weren't prepared. It became obvious you're prepared, and I could come and say, hey, Bill, man, like enjoyed sitting in on the teacher training today. Hey, I don't have full context. And it's my first time seeing you teach. But kind of leading from my gut here, it appeared to me that you weren't as prepared as you should have been for the moment. Like, did you sense that? Or what was your feeling on that?
Okay.
I think that two quick comments that let you speak to. I think acknowledging, hey, I don't have the full picture. Like you just got on our staff. I don't have the full picture. And two, I want to acknowledge I'm kind of leading from my gut here a little bit. Yeah. Those are just really almost two different ways of saying the same thing, and then giving that feedback. I think it helps lower the tension instead of coming in and being like, you weren't prepared.
Yeah. Are you going to do that in front of the whole staff or just with me privately?
Great. Definitely not in front of the whole staff.
Thank you. Good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah,
for sure. Be shamed in front of the whole staff.
That's right. That's a great point.
I can handle that.
Absolutely.
Why should leaders view feedback really as an act of care and development and not just as correction?
Yeah. I think, I'll use that phrase. I think it's part of knowing and growing them is like, if we do care about them, I think it's part of the leaders, think about pastoral leadership, that's shepherding, that's leading. It is to help someone to grow and develop. And Jesus speaking the truth and grace and with love, right? And so I think speaking with truth, but also this grace. So I got to speak truth to people. I want to do it with grace because I do care about them and I do love them. And I would say this too, if we don't give people feedback, other people are going to talk about it, right? Like people see the problem on the team. They see the person coming in late or whatever. And so if I don't give that feedback, man, it creates like gossip or whatever over here. And that's for sure not loving them well, right? So by being honest with them, man, it helps like them even fit better with the team. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think sometimes when I'm giving feedback to people, I try to establish some ground rules even before it happens, right?
Yeah.
To the effect of, it's like, listen, I was hiring a new employee recently, and I said to her before she got hired, I said, one thing about me I want you to know is that if I need to tell you something, I said, I'm a truth teller. I will just get it right on the table with you. I won't dance around it because I like to be talked to that way. If you need to tell me, please tell me, because you already know this. You're high up in this organization. The higher you get in an organization, the less people tell you the truth.
That's right.
I hesitate to use the word truth, but I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
They want to sugarcoat it.
That's right.
Candy it up a little bit, make it taste better to you because they're either trying to, make sure they're still in good with the boss, or they don't want to get in trouble. But we need to hear the truth. I want feedback, even though I might bristle at first. I think that listening to feedback and reflecting on it is honestly the best thing that leaders can do.
Absolutely.
And the truth is, if you're leading up to someone, that is a bit of a tango, if you will. Who's leading? I'm not sure all the time, God, but somebody is, and it's helpful. It needs to be helpful, and so hopefully you feel that.
That's good, man.
What does it look like to sort of balance encouragement and accountability in leadership conversations? Because you have the good and the bad. How do you sort of balance those out?
For sure. I think people are like your car; they need to be filled up all the time, right? And so, I think one of the ways you balance it is constant encouragement, right? Like constantly. I heard a leader say one time, people leak, right? So you can pour encouragement in them, but you can't I encouraged them 6 months ago. What's the problem, right? Like you got to keep encouraging them. I think as you do that, again, it gives you that relational capital to spend some money like with critique, and so I think that's part of that balance. One thing I do is in our one-on-ones, we review goals. I try to do it every time. I'm not saying I'm perfect at that, but try every one-on-one. Okay. Let's talk through your goals. And it gives an automatic kind of doorway to how's that coming? Or like, where do you need to push harder? I can speak into that, give them some feedback. And then another part of that is every one-on-one, while there's some encouragement, I want to ask about their personal life. Just say, how are you doing? How can I pray for you?
Yeah.
There's also a growth, I call it growth, like in the one-on-one agenda where it's like, hey, what feedback do you have for me? And hey, here's some feedback I want to give to you. And I log those and so I can be mindful of like, man, if I've gone a whole 6 months and all I've done is like, you're awesome, you're great. Maybe they really are. Maybe they really are. Or maybe I need to pause and go, man, where can I help them grow? Am I being too, do I need to be more like do I need to have more of a critical eye than I'm currently having? So I think another point there, I guess I'm saying I'd log that to try to see, hey, am I doing both or am I just being the nice guy?
Yeah. I think you're onto something here in that when you're given feedback regularly, you're creating a culture where they kind of expect it. It's normal.
That's right.
It's in the day-to-day. They see that, you're the same today and tomorrow, whether you give them good or bad feedback, that kind of thing. I feel like when we're trying to develop trust or even getting to know new staff members, I think praying for them, obviously, hey, we're a church, right? We pray.
That's right.
And that's important because I do think that level sets and let them know, hey, there's something bigger we're doing here, but our work's important, but yet, hey, we're trusting what we do to the Lord. And I think as people feel that care that you have for them, it makes a difference, when you're in these meetings, do you find that when you ask, hey, how can I be better, do people comment on that, or is it usually like, hey, you're fine,
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you're saying normally, because it's the team I'm leading, they don't normally have a ton of feedback. I think sometimes I've said it's a great question that you're asking that, because you're right, they normally don't. But I think when I ask like, hey, where do you need more clarity from me, that often we'll get something, you know, where do you need more clarity from me? I think that's a helpful
Okay, that is a good question. Yeah, because you're asking them what they need help with in a sense.
That's right.
And this is something that you could do better.
That's right. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. When you're, what are some simple questions maybe that leaders can ask in one-on-ones just to create space for honest feedback? I like that clarity question for one. Are there any others that you think of for development that you can ask in there?
I know I mentioned this, but asking about goals, right? So like, how are you coming on goals, and like, where are you on track? Where are you behind? Where are you ahead?
Yeah.
And then you can have tons of follow-up questions to that. Well, hey, why if you're really knocking that goal out of the park, what do you think's causing that? Or what are you doing that's helping that? Or if you're behind, hey, do you need to reprioritize? So you can just start asking those kind of follow-up questions. I think sometimes just asking something as simple, like one of our guys been doing a phenomenal job preaching when I'm out sometimes, if I'm just giving him a rep, and I'll say, hey man, like what did you love about how that went, and what did you wish you would have done different? And that just, again, this guy's so open to feedback and so hungry to grow, so it's easy with him. But just like as he's talking about that, it's an easy way for me to say, dude, I did love that. All right, hey, you're right. I think you missed that one a little bit. Or to say, hey, actually, you know what? Like, let me bring up something you didn't bring up. And so I think just by starting with what did you like, what did you not like, gives him or opens that door for feedback for sure.
When you talked a little bit about you actually document what you're doing there. And I don't think a lot of people document their feedback very much. So I was just kind of wondering about that. How do we document growth and progress without making it too overly corporate or transactional? What's your method there for knowing what you're going to talk about and how you document it?
Yeah, a great question. So I've recently started, part of it's been this series we're doing right now in our church on technology and its effects on us. Yeah. But now I'm trying to do one-on-ones with my journal. But then after we're done, I have on my laptop, phone, iPad, whatever, I have a note for each, or folder for each staff member, team member. And with that, they're one-on-ones. And so what I do is after the meeting, I just take a picture of my journal page with what I wrote and I upload it into their one-on-one folder so I can access it anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
So that while I'm meeting with them, I'm present, I'm not distracted, I'm in the zone. But then I can easily log very quickly, hey, what was last week's? Or like this the same guy who I was talking about Sunday ago preaching, like we talked recently, hey, about 3 months ago, hey, what are some things you want to grow in that I can come alongside you and help you grow in? And because I can go back to that note easily on my phone, it's easy for me every month when we meet to say, hey, I want to follow up. I want to push on that a little bit more. So that's not super high tech, but it's working for me right now.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you do?
I'm not good at documenting. Well, yeah, I'm not saying I'm not good. Here's what I generally do. I keep a running task list, with each of my direct reports. Okay. So it's not really a folder. I go into, Outlook, I have tasks. I have a task. Let's say you're reporting to me. I would have a task with your name on it. Yeah. And I'll put it on my calendar for the next time that we're going to meet. And then as I'm thinking about that coming up, I'm jotting down things I want to talk about. I keep it on the list. So I keep a big running list, there. And so when we're talking about things, once you say something, usually in the conversation, I have it and we're talking about it. I don't usually take any notes unless they're something you need from me. I might write it down, during it. But generally, I'll just have a pad and paper there that I'll kind of write it on. And then afterward, if you told me something or we need to follow up on something, something that I thought was important enough to write down, I'll put it beside whatever the issue was that we're talking about, just so I know. I mean, I was talking with one of my direct reports last week, my human resource director, who's fairly new. And we were talking about staff culture and about staff culture surveys. We do a survey here, Best Christian Workplace Survey. And so she just said, I'd love to see some of the results of that, how that works, what we can be better at. And so I just jotted a note beside that, hey, send her the results of this. Just so I kind of know what my next follow-up is. And then after the meeting, I'm trying to go back through those later. Maybe I'll set that task for tomorrow instead of our next week meeting so I can go, oh, yeah, I need to do this. I need to prepare what I'm going to say. Yeah. I like to set my task reminders for a couple days before my meetings. And that way, I'm thinking about it. I'm putting it in there. Is there anything else that's come up? And obviously, if something comes up in general conversation during the week that's related to that particular area, I open up that task and I just add it right to the top of the list.
That's good.
For me, that kind of keeps me going because obviously, keeping organized, but I do want to give regular feedback to people because you're right. I think when you don't, it becomes troublesome, right? You're going to have a lot more hard conversations, and I don't want to have those. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think to that point, we trying to use the verbiage. I want to give a 1 degree correction. Think about like a plane on a course, like flying from, let's say, from LA to DC. If it's 1 degree off for 10 minutes, that's an easy correction. If it's 1 degree off for 2 hours, like hey, now we have a harder correction, right? Yeah. And I think similar with us, like I'd rather do those regular 1 degree corrections, like hey, just when immediately, right? Versus man, it's been 6 months and we're 47 degrees off course, and now we need a 90-day improvement plan or whatever, right? Like, So it just
kind of balloons on you.
That's right.
What happens if you're in a feedback situation and you're having to give some difficult feedback and the person just shuts down or they tear up or whatever, or they get loud, whatever. You must have experienced that in your time.
Yeah, sure. It's those are always fun, right? There's different reasons, right, that cause that for sure. Yeah. But I think sometimes just pausing, right, just giving them space. And I think I've had it happen where you just quiet and they're like, you don't have to ask anything. They just start talking. They're like, I'm sorry, I'm fill in the blank.
Okay.
I think sometimes like in a high performance culture like ours, we have a lot of high D personalities, drivers, right? They get things done, challengers. And so I think sometimes with a high D personality, they may push back at first to that. Yeah. And so to recognize that may be like just their initial reaction. So maybe if I circle back the next day, I give them time to like, I even heard my wife's telling me a situation at work where like someone came back to them the next day after pushing back in the moment to the feedback, came back and was like, hey, God convicted me. I was not humble. I want to apologize. Which is like, wow, how cool is that, right? Yeah. So I think sometimes just giving people time to process, right, I think is helpful. And then even I think last thing I'll say is sometimes just like stop in and just say, I know this is tough to hear. Like, can I just pray for God's help as we're talking through this, and just stopping and praying, inviting, reminding that person too, especially in like being a church, like, reminding them, hey, the Holy Spirit's with us, and He's for you, I'm for you, right?
Yeah.
I think it can be helpful.
What should you not do in that moment?
Yeah. Why are you crying?
Okay. Grow up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't. Another thing I'll say. I'm so bad at this. I'm trying to grow at this. Don't talk more. I think one of the worst things we do when we get feedback is we think talking more is the answer. And like, hopefully we go into feedback with a simple, like, I'm going to give them 2 or 3, maybe no more than 2, maybe examples of, here's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Be succinct and be quiet. And I think, when they're, especially if they're getting emotive, like, we don't need to try to fix it by talking. Yeah.
You know, we have a counselor staff member here, Keith Tenpenny, and Keith has said to me before, not just to me, but to our staff, he'll say, listen, when the situation becomes electric, you be the ground. I know I'm speaking to you electricians out there, but hey, you know, when things get excitable, you be calm.
That's good.
You be that calm in the storm, because the calmer you are, people will kind of reflect your mood a little. But I think what you're talking about with silence is great. Just don't say anything for a minute and see what happens. You know, just be calm, or to say, hey, listen, you know, or sometimes I will ask the person if they're getting really upset, hey, what's causing you to have such a strong reaction?
Yeah.
Or depending on how well I know them, I might say, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
I would say about it, and I'm saying, no, I'm not talking about this. What's going on? You're not a person who reacts strongly.
That's right.
Is everything okay at home? Or your kids are, you know, I'm going to ask them a personal question because you said it early on. There's a lot that could be going on there.
That's right.
There's a lot of things that can make people react. Exactly. Right. And I try to look for the positive and think, okay, maybe this is an anomaly. I mean, you do, hey, newsflash, there are people in life who are pretty, you know, electric at times.
That's right.
and they live that way.
That's right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that you have to recognize that. But most of the time when people get quickly emotional or whatever it is, there's something going on.
That's right.
in my experience. And so I try to be very careful about that.
Calm,
I wouldn't call myself a sensitive person, but in those moments, I try to be.
That's right. Yeah.
I try to be, man.
You brought Keith Tenpenny. I remember I asked him one time, I had a situation with a congregant where the conversation got pretty heated, and I asked Keith, hey man, I want to get some feedback. And I shared the story, and one of the things I said to this person as they got pretty heated, which I felt like I was being calm. I felt like they were very hot, like emotionally, which maybe I was hotter than I realized. But I told the person, hey, I can tell you're getting pretty emotional. And he immediately was like, yeah, you shouldn't have said that. and I was like,
I'm learning.
I was trying to be empathetic. He was like, hey, I get it. And I was like, you weren't being mean by saying that, but that's not helping. He said,
it's not helpful.
He said the better thing to say would be something like, I can tell this means a lot to you.
Okay. Yeah.
And why don't we take a breather and let's come back tomorrow, or whatever it may be. But like, let's maybe talk in 30 minutes. But I thought that's I took that in my back pocket of like, I can tell this means a lot to you. Not, I can see you're getting emotional. So okay. We're all still learning.
Yeah. You can try these things out on your wife from now.
That's right.
See how she'll give you good feedback.
For sure. She will. She'll tell me what's up. No doubt.
You know, I'll tell this story. Why not? You know, I was in a little situation last night where, I don't know, I was packing for something or doing something and getting ready to go away. And my wife said something and I jabbed back a little bit, you know, and so we started to get into it. I said, hey, let's just hug it out, you know, just kind of hugged her and just held on. I said, are we good now? She's like, yeah, we're good. You know, just hug it out, man. You can't do that with an employee, clearly. But with your wife, you can. So yeah, you want to give that. What, one more thing on the, just on a difficult conversation. If you're going to have that, how might you start it with a person that you know it's going to be sensitive? Maybe you don't know them that well and you need to talk to them. What are some things you might ask, or how you might get into it with them?
Something I've done, I'm going to say this on a preface. I think I'm going to guess that people who are maybe drawn to this particular podcast, like this episode, are like me, and like you don't love giving feedback.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to assume that's like if you like love feedback all the time, you might have skipped past this one. But I think I think something when I know someone, man, it's going to be tough because they're a challenger, they're going to push whatever. Yeah. Which I've challenged in me too. But I think in those moments, I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And I've led the conversation with, I guess let's pretend it's you again.
Sure.
Hey, Bill, this is going to be a tough conversation. I just say it.
Yeah, just get it on the table.
Part of that is because I want to hold myself accountable. Because if I say it's going to be a tough conversation and then I pull all my punches, what is that? So by saying, hey, this is going to be a tough conversation, I'm going ahead and like, here we go, right?
Yeah.
And I think it helps them know, to your point earlier, I'm not dancing around. I'm just like, hey, this is going to be tough.
Yeah.
But I care about you, so let's talk about it. So I've done that I think 2 or 3 different times. I knew it was going to be kind of supercharged.
Yeah.
And what my wife says, she lives in this world all the time with her role, her work. Like, it never goes great, right? Like you're kidding yourself if you think, oh, it's perfect. No, I mean, there's always a struggle there, but I think it was better than had I gone in and like danced around. I mean, just be honest about what's going to happen.
Yeah,
does that make sense? Or,
you're not wanting to sandwich it between 2 good things.
Straight.
The compliment sandwich, as they
sure.
Hey, you're great. Let me tell you something terrible about you. Hey, let me go back to something good.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
I like that feels manipulative sometimes.
I don't think that's great. I think when I thought about this myself, I came to a similar conclusion. If I have to have a conversation like that, I'll usually say, hey, listen, I may not get this perfect, what I'm about to say to you, but I care enough that I think it needs to be discussed. I'll just kind of lean in about that word care. I do think that's important. Hopefully, your life, your attitude, the way you operate shows that.
That's right.
And I always tell people, you don't have to, if that's how you live and that's how you are, and I think our leaders try to be that here, you don't have to explain, hey, I care. You either do or you don't, and people will know that. Stand on your reputation there and just say, hey, I care enough about this, and we need to speak to it. I love what you said, too. When you're giving feedback, always give, I want to call it detailed feedback. 1 or 2 little things. Don't just say, well, people are saying this about you. No, hey, here's a specific incident we need to discuss and some behavior I've observed,
That's right.
And we call that critical incidents around here.
That's right.
I think in feedback, good or bad, I always think as specific as you can be, the better it is.
That's right.
If a leader wants to build a healthier culture of feedback on their team, what's the first step they should take? They want to build a healthier culture of feedback.
Yeah, if I keep it short, say one-on-ones. Like if they don't have one-on-ones, I feel like it's almost impossible to have a culture of feedback. You can still have feedback, but a culture of feedback without regular one-on-ones. That'd be my quick answer. One-on-ones. I'd add to that, I think I was saying this earlier in the podcast, like, again, no one likes the leader or wants to hear feedback from the leader who's MIA, who's not engaged, not involved, and then just shows up, boom, I got critical feedback. That's never going to go well. So I think it's one-on-ones, and I would say the like extended version would be like, be with your people, show up to their events, be involved in what's going on, know how you can pray for them, and that opens up the doorway for hard feedback.
Yeah, I think that's good. Well, hey, Brandon, been a good session today. Really appreciate your wisdom on feedback.
Me too,
we've both given each other feedback over the couple last few years.
That's right.
You're good at it, man.
You
appreciate
too.
it.
Yeah,
appreciate that. Healthy feedback really does create healthier teams. And if today's episode encouraged you, we'd love for you to join us at the Elevate Church Conference that we're hosting on September 21st and 22nd of this year. You can learn more about it and register at the elevatechurchconference.com. And thanks for listening to the Brentwood Baptist Leadership Podcast. You know what? I'll see you next week.